All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smart screen, to the right of the video if you're on a larger screen. All right. Let's see if we got any questions in here. All right. No new questions at the moment. So if you got a question, now's a good time to ask. If not, no worries. Oh, we got one here from Reg, and it says, please review ball position for uphill and downhill lies for chipping. Is it the same for full swings? Really depends on the trajectory of the shot that you want. It's really not going to be any different than like a normal chip. It really just depends on the trajectory you're looking for. So if you're looking for a higher trajectory, you'll put it more forward in your stance. If you're looking for a lower trajectory, you're going to put it more back in your stance. Now, obviously, with a downhill lie, you might want a little higher trajectory because the slope is going to make the trajectory come out lower, right? So you might put it a little bit forward in the stance. And the key with hitting off of these sloped lies is you go with the slope. You tilt your body with the slope. You swing with the slope, right? So if I have an uphill lie, I'm going to tilt my shoulders more upward so that way I can swing with the slope, right? If I have a downhill lie, I'm going to tilt my shoulders more this way. No, relative to the slope, I still have my spine angle, right? But, relative to, from where, ground zero is basically, my spine angle may be leaning toward depending on the severity of the slope. So if I have a downhill slope, I'm going to be swinging. I'm going to have my spine angled with the slope. So my spine angle may actually look like it's leaning toward the target, but I'm swinging with the slope, right? So it really just depends on the trajectory of the shot that you're looking for. But yeah, just get your body with the slope. If I'm uphill, I'm gonna tilt my body more back to get up, to swing up the slope. If I'm downhill, I'm gonna tilt my body more toward the target, so that way I can swing down through the slope. But the ball position, generally I would say a little bit forward for higher trajectory, middle for normal trajectory, and back for lower trajectory. Feet. I would look at the feet because again, your body may be tilted forward, so the ball position is going to be generally, relative to your feet. So I'm going to put it in the middle of my feet if I want a normal standard trajectory, and play around with it. That's what works best for me. You might find that your normal trajectory might be a little bit forward to the middle, a little bit back to the middle. You have to play around to find what works best for you. There's no, there's no set thing that says, okay, if you're hitting a middle trajectory shot, you have to put the ball position here. It's not really like that. You got to play around with it to find what works best for you. That's a lot of what golf is. A lot of what I have on here, the answers and stuff, it's more just advice. It doesn't mean that, you may go out, because if you look at Dustin Johnson's ball position, right? Dustin Johnson's ball position is more forward than most golfers. Well, the reason is that Dustin Johnson has way more shaft lean than most golfers. If he played the ball farther back in his stance, well, he would have a hard time getting the ball up in the air very much, right? So everyone's has their own little different swing type stuff. So a lot of it is learning by doing, figuring it out, right? And experimenting to see what works best for you. All right, keep the questions coming. All right. So Ted asks, can you explain ulnar deviation in the golf swing? Yeah. So let's talk about what exactly that means, and some other terms you may have heard us kind of say. So ulnar deviation is basically thumbs up, or sorry, not thumbs up, thumbs out. Radial deviation is thumbs up, right? So if I go thumbs up, that's radial deviation. Thumbs out, or away from you, thumbs away, that's ulnar deviation, right? So when we're in the address position, our wrists are more, our thumbs are more out away from us, right? So that's going to be ulnar deviation. As we bring the club up, we're going toward radial, right? So I'm going gradually going up towards thumbs up. So I'm going thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, radial, radial, radial. Even as I start my downswing and I create some lag, I'm going to be working more into radial. So this is where I'm going to be max radial deviation is around that lead arm parallel in the downswing position. When we look at the best golfers, that's typically what we're going to see. That's that maximum lag angle that we talk about. That's happening around lead arm parallel in the downswing. That's when the angle between the lead arm and the shaft is the sharpest. That's when we're in that maximum radial deviation. From there, we're going to be working toward ulnar deviation. So now I'm going thumbs away, thumbs out, thumbs out, thumbs out, right? I still have lag, but I'm working toward releasing this club, which basically ulnar deviation is releasing the club, right? So I'm here, I'm going more toward ulnar, right? I'm going to be at impact, and then I'm going to continue toward ulnar as I release the club completely. Then after I release the club, I'm actually going to go back toward radial as I come around into my full finish, right? So ulnar deviation is thumbs out away from you. We're in that address. We work toward radial as we get up to the top, and as we come into the downswing, and then from that lead arm parallel position to the release, I'm going toward ulnar deviation. Then I go back into radial as I come all the way around into the full finish. All right, see if there's any new questions. All right, so we got one from Gordon A. Says, when I place a tee or towel 4 inches behind the ball, I generally hit the object on downswing. Does that mean I'm not transferring my weight properly to left side? It certainly could. There's lots of things, but the weight shift's the most likely one. So yeah, so if you're struggling with that, then I would do some weight shift drills. If you go to the stop chunking and topping course, there's some great weight shift drills in there. The step drill, that sort of thing. So yeah, you're probably not shifting your weight properly. It could be ball position as well. So if your ball position is too far forward, you could be shifting your weight, but you're just not, your ball position is too far forward to allow you to get to the ball, right? So that could be part of it as well. So check your ball position. For shots that you're hitting off the ground, I'd have that ball position, middle to maybe one ball forward of middle, right? If you got that ball position really far forward than that can make it more difficult. So moving that ball position middle to one ball forward of middle may help that out quite a bit. And then working on some weight shift drills. If you go to the stop chunking and topping section on the website, if you click the house icon at the top, that'll take you to the home page, and then from the home page, you can go from there. All right, keep the questions coming. All right, so Larry L says, can you go over the swing for a greenside bunker shot? Yeah, so let's talk about that. So first and foremost, greenside bunker shot, I'd use a high lofted wedge, 60, 56 degree, somewhere in there. And, this would typically be pretty good for most people for a 15 to 20 yard bunker shot or and below. So, it'd be hard. It's, with a 60 degree, unless you just have a ton of club head speed, it may be difficult to get it to go much farther than 20, yards or so. That's generally about my limit, unless you hit just really close to the ball, in which case that's going to be a higher, a lower margin of error. So I don't really recommend that. So high lofted club, 56, 60 degree wedge. The two biggest things that I see people get wrong with bunker shots, number one is they don't open up the face enough. So we need to get that face wide open. Number two is they don't swing hard enough, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But number one is we need to get that face open. The reason is that we need to expose this bounce on this club. The bounce is this right here. So we want this part of the club to be hitting the sand first. If we don't open up the face and we use a square face, then we're going to be more likely to get this leading edge hitting the sand first. If the leading edge hits the sand first, then the club is going to dive into the sand. You're going to tend to chunk it, right? If we get the bounce hitting the sand first, then it will glide through the sand and it will allow you to get underneath the ball and lift it up out of there. So the way you can kind of think about this is like water skiing, right? If you're water skiing, if you get the nose of the skis up out of the water, the skis are going to glide on top of the water. If you get the nose of the skis pointing down into the water, the skis are going to dive into the water, right? So we want to have that club kind of gliding through the sand. So we want to have that leading edge up, hitting the bounce first. Opening up the face does that. The other thing that the opening of the face does is it adds more loft to help you to lift the ball up out of there. A lot of times when we're in a greenside bunker, it's below the level of the green. So sometimes it's way below, right? So sometimes we need that lift up out of there, and that loft allows that to happen, right? So with the setup with this, I want to use a nice wide stance. The reason why I want to use a nice wide stance is, one, for stability, right? Sand is not a very stable surface, right? So if we get a little bit wider, it allows us to have a little bit more stability. The other thing that it does is it makes it easier to get those hands lower, right? If I have my feet close together, it's more difficult for me to have my hands lower, right? Because my legs are kind of in the way and I have to bend over quite a bit, right? If I get wider, that in and of itself makes my hands lower. And then also I have space. My legs aren't in the way, so I have space to have my hands lower, right? The reason why I want to have my hands lower is, one, it helps engage the bounce some more. And two, it straightens out the shot, right? So if you look at it this way, when I open up the face, that's going to point my club face to the right, right? So if I just open up the face, see how that points my face to the right? But now if I open up the face and I lower the handle, well, now look, that straightens it out, right? So that gets to where I'm more toward the target, more toward where my feet are aligned, right? So that's why we want to get lower as well. And then as far as where we're hitting the sand, you're going to try to hit the sand basically in the middle of your stance, right? The ball position is going to be forward of that 4 to 6 inches, I would say, right? So if you think about, I'll put this alignment stick down here. This is going to be where I'm going to hit the sand. And then I'm going to have the ball, basically right about there. So if I have this in the middle of my stance, I got this face wide open, right? And I'm going to hit the sand starting where the stick is. I'm going to glide underneath the sand. That's going to get underneath the ball. That's going to lift the ball up and out of there, right? So now with this, I just want to make sure that I'm swinging hard, right? I want to get some good knee flex here, get some hip flex, get my hands low, and I want to swing hard, and I really want to thump that sand. I really want to get that nice sound, that thump sound as I'm hitting the sand. That's going to help get the ball up out of there. We have to hit this with some speed, because if we don't, the ball's not going to get up and out of there. The sand provides resistance to the club, so we have to hit through that resistance, and the way that we do that is with speed. Clay actually, a few years ago, he brought the launch monitor into the sand to see how fast he was swinging on these sand shots, and he found that he was basically swinging as fast as he would on a full swing shot, right? So basically, an 80-yard lob wedge shot was the same as a 15-yard bunker shot, right? And I understand why people don't want to swing fast, because they feel like they're swinging so hard that the ball's going to go so far, but it won't if you hit the sand. We got to hit the sand, commit to hitting the sand. And if we do that, that's going to provide the resistance. That's going to slow the club down. That's going to allow the club to slide underneath through the sand and hit the ball and lift the ball up out of there, right? So again, wide open club face, get that thing 45 degrees open. We want to feel like it's pointing up to the sky, straight up to the sky here. We're going to get those hands low. We're going to hit with the middle of our stance here, and that ball is going to be 4 to 6 inches in front of that. This club's going to glide underneath the sand. And the other thing that we want to do is when we're releasing it, we want to feel like that face is always pointing back toward us, right? We're always keeping that face open. What we don't want to do is roll the hands over, because if we roll the hands over, that closes the face. That's going to get that leading edge down in the sand. So we want to feel like, as we're coming through, when we finish this, that I want to feel like that club face is still pointing back toward me, right? If I roll through, well, now that club face is pointing that way. I want to feel like that I keep my trail hand underneath, right? So see how I'm coming through? My trail hand stays underneath the club, and that's pointing back toward me. And you might be looking at that and like, well, that looks like flipping. Well, it's exactly what it is, right? Now, if you're someone who already flips in your swing, you probably don't need to feel like you're flipping, right? If you're someone who has an impact position that looks like this, you probably need to feel like you're scooping and keeping that underneath. If you're someone who has an impact position that looks like this, where you don't have a lot of shaft lean, then you just need to swing, but feel like you keep your trail hand underneath it and that face is pointing back toward you, right? And that's going to allow you to get through that sand nicely and get it up out of there. So go out there and try that. And your bunker shot should be a lot better. So Red Jan says, is it correct that with a bunker, hard, compact, wet sand, you want to use the bounce rather actually have the club dig to some extent? You just use the bounce less, right? Because the club, if it's really hard, and again, the other thing to understand here is that not all hard compacted sand is created equal. Sometimes it's like concrete, and sometimes it's just soft sand that's wet, and it's really not that much different than it is when it's dry. When it's dry, it's more fluffy, it's less resistance right through there, but there's more resistance with the harder sand. So if you hit that, if it's like concrete, that bounce may bounce off of it, and then you hit the ball with the leading edge. It's not going to get into the sand. So again, I talked about it before. A lot of this short game stuff is learning by doing. You have to learn by doing. You're not going to get it by me telling you, oh, you got to make a little adjustment, right? Because it's not always going to be the same. I don't know exactly what the sand is like, so you have to kind of see for yourself, like, okay, when I hit it this way, when I open up the face this much on this type of lie, this is what happens, right? You have to go through the experience of it. So yeah, play around with it. Play around with if you're on harder sand, play around with opening up the face a little bit less, hitting it a little bit closer to the ball. Keep in mind that when you open up the face less and you hit closer to the ball, you don't have to swing as hard because you're catching more of the ball, right? The ball's going to go farther because you're catching more of it, right? So keep that in mind, but go out there, experiment with it, so that way you can understand, like, okay, when I'm in this kind of sand and this kind of condition, this is the adjustments that I need to make. And sometimes it's a guessing game because you don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it should be, right? If you think about it, hitting it into a bunker, that's a hazard. You shouldn't be hitting it in there, right? So you have to, sometimes it should be a penalty, right? So you have to sometimes it's a guessing game. It's not always going to be a great, beautiful bunker shot, right? We got more than 30 minutes left, so if we have some more questions, feel free to ask. If not, no worries. All right. So Dan S says, can't find the office hours archived on my phone. Can you point me in the right direction? Yeah. So I think you just go to the hamburger icon and then you go instruction, then you go office hours, then office hours highlights, um, then uh, then you can scroll down to the bottom of the page from there. Also, let me see here. So I'm going to put the link to the office hours highlights page in the chat. So if you can access that, if you're on your phone right now, you can just click that page and that will take you there. You can bookmark it in your browser and you can always get to it if you want. Yeah. So yeah, it's all the way down the bottom of the page is where the archives are. It's just a playlist, so you'll be able to see the playlist there, and then you can choose the day that you are looking for in the playlist. All right. While you guys are coming up with questions, I'm just going to take a quick break. So I will be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Just have a little bit of a cold coming on, so had to go take care of that. All right. We got, 30 minutes left. I do have to go right at noon, so please get your questions in. Um, if you ask a question at the buzzer, I may not be able to answer it. Somebody yesterday asked a question, basically, as office hours was ending. I just had to kind of point them to a video. All right, we got about 20 minutes left. If we have any more questions. Dan S says, after speed training, how do you try to incorporate it into a normal swing? Do you try to add the bigger turn, etc., into your swing and continue with the wild shots, hoping you learn how to control it better, or do you swing normally and hope the swing uh, training slowly in works? Oh, swing trading slowly I works its way into your swing, or combo of the two. Well, it depends on when you're playing what your goal is, right? If your goal is to play your best golf, then you need to make the swing that allows you to do that. So if you're trying to incorporate speed training and you're hitting the ball all over the map, and you're trying to play your best, that kind of goes against that. So you got to make as fast a swing that you can control out on the course. Tiger's dad told him he can swing as hard as he wants as long as he hits it in the middle of the face. If you're not hitting it in the middle of the face and your face and path are off and you're hitting it all over the place, then you shouldn't really be doing that. Now, if it's a wide open hole and it doesn't really matter where you end up, it might be worth the risk, to do that. But, it's not worth the extra. It's probably not worth the extra 10 yards to be way off the planet, versus, in the fairway. If you're able to get because there's a difference between your playing speed and your 100% effort speed. You shouldn't really ever be, if you're speed training, that's not the swing that you're trying to take to the course, right? Speed training is to develop speed, and then as your speed training swing goes up, your playing speed swing is going to go up as well, right? So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, if you're going out there and you're hitting it great when you're trying to do the same things you're doing in speed training, then yeah, by all means. But it really just depends on what's actually happening and what your goal is. If you're out there and you don't care how you play, you just want to try to get the speed as much as you can. It's not the most efficient way to do it. You can do it on the course. It'd be way more efficient to do it on the range, because you can get more swings in, right? But yeah. So JG says, can you go over the setup for the plane drill? It's the one using an alignment stick, a swing plane, and the lie angle of the club. Yeah. So basically, you set the angle at the lie angle of the club. You put this, so where it would intersect the ground. So where the stick would go into the ground, you want that to be about 6 inches outside your ball. And then you want to have the stick, roughly about 2 grip widths behind, right? So that way your hands are in the way, right? So that's how you would set it up. So about 1.5 to 2 feet behind the ball, 6 inches outside the ball at the lie angle of the club. And if you don't know the lie angle of your club, that's fine. You can just set it flush to the ground. Right. So if I was wanting to do it with my, this wedge here, I'd have this club flush to the ground. So when I say flush to the ground, I mean it's laying flat on the ground like this. And then I would just adjust this to match that. Right. So now that matches that. So now I would do it there. Driver is going to be flatter. Wedges are going to be more upright. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. If you have any more questions. All right, so again, I'm just going to take a quick break. Like I said, I got a little bit of a cold coming on, so I will be right back. Alrighty. So Willis says, when playing a course with rock hard greens, should you come in high or hit more or hit before the green to run it on? Either or. I mean, you can bring it in higher, right, and that will have a steeper angle of descent, and that can help the ball sit better. Or you can run it up on. It's either or. I mean, you can do either one. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great weekend, and I will talk to y'all next time.